Impact 1 out of every 10 Americans, but a voucher to incentivize drug companies to research rare disease treatments is expiring today. Our State Capitol Bureau Chief Vanessa Kelson tells us more about how this might impact Wisconsinites.
Do you have PT today? Yeah. Do you have speech today? Yeah. Do you have a lot of therapy, Cade? Yeah. Got it, Muscles? I'm mom to 5 boys and caregiver to one that has a rare genetic condition called Prader-Willi syndrome.
95% of rare diseases like Prader-Willi syndrome have no treatment.
I was told by doctors that be prepared, he's going to have a short life.
A mother turned advocate, Katie Morrow, is hoping Congress will extend the Rare Pediatric Priority Review Program to incentivize drug companies to find a cure for her son.
Right now, they see the voucher program as a major financial incentive to develop treatments for rare disorders.
Dr. Stephen Mine, the director of the UW Center for Human Genomics and Precision Medicine, explains rare disease treatments have a small market.
You're not going to create a blockbuster drug that everyone is going to be taking.
So to create a financial incentive for drug companies to still research rare diseases, a voucher program was created. Essentially, if the FDA approves your rare disease treatment, then you can get priority review for another future drug you make for any disease, not just rare ones.
So what you're selling is the opportunity to get another drug on the market about 6 months sooner than otherwise. That is considered quite valuable.
Drug companies can sell these vouchers to each other for hundreds of millions of dollars, which some critics of the program say could ultimately drive up drug prices for consumers.
I have this hope out here that there will be a cure for PWS.
Morrow sees this voucher program as being one step closer to finding a cure for her son, Cade.
That'd be a great birthday present to Mom. What do you think?
If no further action is taken, pharmaceutical companies will have until September 30th of 2026 to receive vouchers for their qualifying drugs. After that, the FDA will no longer be allowed to give out those priority review vouchers. For now, in Madison, Vanessa Kelson.